Humanity had always been dismissed as a young, provincial race on the edge of the map spiral. The Galactic Empire, an ancient hierarchy ruling over hundreds of worlds, cataloged Earth as a minor agricultural source with no strategic value. Their fleets passed human colonies without concern. Their envoys spoke to diplomats as of addressing children. To the Imperial Council, humans were nothing more than an amusing curiosity, bipedal mammals with quaint traditions and primitive weapons. But there were whispers, ignored at first, spreading in the lower ranks of the fleet. A human warship was haunting the void. No transponder, no insignia, only scars burned into its hull and streaks of dried crimson trailing across its plating like some predator's warning marks. At first, these rumors were treated as absurd stories told by frightened merchants. A freighter lost in the Hallow Rift sent its last signal, static and the words, "He's coming." A remote listening post went dark after reporting a single contact moving against gravity lanes. When scouts were dispatched, they found debris scattered across vacuum, and no crew left a question. Each time the tale grew darker. Some claimed the ship's outer plates bore the shape of human bones. Others swore that approaching vessels picked up the sound of a child's lullaby through the comm system just before their instruments failed. The Empire dismissed it as panic. But panic is a seed that sprouts quickly in the cracks of arrogance. Humanity had tried peace first. Delegates went before the imperial court to secure fair trade and protection for their colonies. They were laughed out of the Grand Chamber. When human outposts resisted taxation, entire settlements were bombarded to ash as an example. Families were chained, cities burned, and the message was clear: kneel or perish. But the Empire misunderstood humanity's nature. Other species learned to survive by submission. Humans learned to survive by refusing it. And among them was one captain who took that lesson to its logical conclusion. His name was erased from every record by design. He stripped an aging destroyer to its frame, rebuilt it with salvage reactors, experimental stealth matrices, and weapons stolen from dead battlefields. He painted nothing on its hull but the color of dried blood. Then he vanished into the deep void. The first direct contact came near the Avalis border, when an Imperial cruiser found an unknown craft adrift. It looked crippled, life support offline, engines cold. Cautiously, the Empire sent a boarding party. Minutes later, all comms filled with short, choking screams, the sound of gunfire, and then silence. Scans showed no survivors. The boarding team's transponders flickered and died as if snuffed out. The cruiser powered its main weapons, but the derelict ship suddenly came to life, its engines igniting in a burst of blue light. It accelerated straight through the cruiser's firing arc, shredding its bridge with pinpoint kinetic strikes. Only one escape pod was ever found, carrying a junior officer shaking uncontrollably, whispering the same phrase over and over, "The Baba Yaga hunts us." Intelligence analysts mocked the name at first. In human folklore, Baba Yaga was a witch who lived in a house with legs and devoured trespassers. But to the lower ranks of the fleet, it became a curse. Every unexplained disappearance, every convoy lost, every sense of glitch in the night was blamed on the bloodied ship. They said its captain never spoke except to warn, "You should not have come." Then his enemies simply vanished. As months passed, the legend grew teeth. Merchant lanes were found littered with wreckage. Slaver ships that had taken human captives were boarded, and their crews slaughtered with surgical precision. Entire task forces were dispatched to hunt the Phantom, only to return crippled or not at all. No survivors could explain how one vessel could strike so hard, vanish so completely, or mock Imperial tracking systems as if guided by something more than human. The Empire increased its military presence in human systems, convinced that force would crush resistance. But the heavier their hand, the more vicious the attacks became. Like a wolf surrounded by too many hunters, the Baba Yaga learned to kill without being seen. Within human space, whispers of the captain spread like gospel. He was no longer just a man. He was vengeance wearing a human face. No government admitted to commanding him. No family claimed him as their son. Those who knew his name stayed silent, believing he had given up his identity to become a ghost. He carried no crew, or so the stories claimed, only the uploaded minds of volunteers who had died fighting the Empire. They said his ship spoke with the voices of the fallen, that targeting systems were guided by rage itself. When his weapons fired, they never missed. When enemy missiles launched, they veered off course as if blinded. And each time his battered destroyer reappeared more scarred than before, its hull stitched with fresh wounds, its crimson marks growing darker. Imperial propaganda tried to crush the story. Official broadcasts called him a terrorist, a pirate, a criminal no different than any raider hiding in the void. But in the barracks and among junior officers, the title Baba Yaga spread faster than sensors could contain it. Young pilots refused assignments near human systems. Outpost commanders requested transfers. Even hardened admirals privately admitted unease. When an enemy fights to live, they can be beaten. When an enemy fights as though he is already dead, victory becomes uncertain. The High Council convened to discuss how one man, in a single ship, could humiliate an empire. They concluded he must be destroyed publicly, crushed as an example to all humans. They authorized a bounty on his head and dispatched elite hunters, ships armed with the latest grav lances and AI targeting. None returned. Their last transmission showed their sensors going dark, their power cores overloading, their crews suffocating as life support was vented into space. In every case, the same mocking transmission came through, simple, calm, and human. Leave Earth alone. By the end of the year, 22 Imperial ships were gone. Not damaged, not captured, gone. Patrol routes shifted, convoys rerouted, and entire sectors reported missing fleets. Every scar the Baba Yaga took, he wore openly, letting his enemies know they had hurt him but failed to stop him. And each failure of the Empire made his legend stronger. In the deep archives of the Imperial Intelligence Bureau, analysts began piecing together human history, searching for clues. They learned of Earth's endless wars, of soldiers who fought against impossible odds, of resistance fighters who turned the tide with cunning and willpower. They realized too late that humans had been shaped not by safety, but by conflict. Where other species evolved to cooperate under stronger rulers, humanity evolved to overthrow them. And now, the Empire faced not a soldier, not even a fleet commander, but something far worse, a man who decided that fear itself was a weapon. The Galactic Empire prepared for war with the confidence of giants crushing ants. Their fleet stretched across hundreds of light years. Their admirals commanded ships large enough to blot out moons, and their weapons could boil oceans from orbit. Against such power, humans were supposed to be irrelevant. Yet, one human ship kept cutting through Imperial lines like a scalpel, appearing without warning and vanishing before any retaliation could lock on. Every admiral who pursued it returned humiliated. If they returned at all, the High Council grew impatient. They summoned intelligence officers, demanded projections, and ordered the immediate subjugation of human systems. Fear had to be answered with overwhelming force. They said, but in the shadows of their own fleets, officers whispered a different truth. The Baba Yaga was not afraid of force. He welcomed it. The imperial occupation of human colonies began with shock and awe. Garrisons descended on Mars and Titan, confiscating shipyards and arresting anyone who spoke against the throne. They burned farmland on distant outposts to starve resistance into submission. Families were dragged from their homes, labor camps filled overnight, and every broadcast repeated the same line. Humanity must learn its place. The Empire expected compliance. Instead, their patrols disappeared faster. Supply convoys stopped arriving. Communications relays went dark one after another. Entire sectors cut off in silence. Reports told of Imperial ships found drifting, their power cores intact, their crews gone without a trace. When recovery teams boarded, they found corridors painted in blood and walls marked with the words, "I am coming." Commanders tried to censor the findings, but the soldiers who walked those halls returned pale and broken, spreading the legend further. Soon no one wanted to patrol human space. The bravest officers resigned rather than risk assignment. The weakest ones obeyed out of terror, knowing that orders disobeyed meant death by firing squad. Yet orders obeyed meant facing the Baba Yaga. At the borders of Imperial space, merchant ships began detecting an unidentified craft moving faster than predicted by any known drive model. The Crimson Streak destroyer appeared in unexpected locations, bypassing security perimeters, then striking with inhuman precision. Entire escort groups guarding prisoner transports were gutted without warning. Satellites monitoring the approach caught only fragments, a black silhouette streaking across stars, power signatures spiking in unnatural rhythms, and a single broadcast repeated endlessly, "You should have listened." The Empire flooded human space with additional fleets. The fleets vanished. As fear gripped the lower ranks, the Baba Yaga escalated his message. Outposts on the frontier reported their automated defense grids turning against their own operators. Orbital cannons aimed at nothing but friendly ships. When technicians tried to override the systems, their consoles lit up with a single human phrase: "This is not for you. Run." Many obeyed, abandoning their post before the bloodied ship even arrived. Those who stayed were found lifeless, airlocks blown, bodies frozen in the void, untouched by enemy fire. They hadn't even been shot at. He had simply taken control and vented them into nothingness. Then the Baba Yaga made his first direct move into Imperial core territory. Near the Karival corridor, a massive convoy supplying the capital itself was intercepted. Dozens of warships defended it, commanded by a battle-hardened admiral who believed no human could stand against Imperial might. His formation lasted 12 minutes. First their navigation vanished. Then their weapons turned on each other. Friendly ships rammed one another as if guided by unseen hands. When the destroyer finally revealed itself, it fired only 3 shots, each strike piercing command bridges precisely. The Admiral's flagship disintegrated, its final message an open channel repeating. Warning ignored. The High Council panicked behind closed doors. Their arrogance began to crack as they realized they were not facing a mere pirate, but an enemy who understood them better than they understood themselves. This captain wasn't simply destroying ships. He was dismantling morale. Every Imperial doctrine relied on intimidation, on overwhelming force crushing any spark of resistance. But humans did not yield. They bled, learned, and came back sharper. The Baba Yaga was showing the entire galaxy what happened when you push humans too far. And now his ship was heading straight for the Imperial capital. Warnings came from merchants, scouts, even rival species who quietly hoped to see the Empire fall. Imperial analysts predicted the Phantom ship would take months to reach the core. They were wrong. It slipped past every net, traveling lanes no human ship should have known, vanishing from sensors, and reappearing days later deep inside restricted space. Entire fleets scrambled to intercept, but their quarry moved like smoke through fingers. He disabled long-range surveillance, cut power to navigation buoys, and used the Empire's own communications relays as cover. At every stage, he left his calling card, wreckage and silence. As the bloodied ship neared the capital system, panic spread even among high command. Defense officers triple-checked shields, overrode AI protocols to prevent hacking, and armed weapons with manual safeties. Yet no one slept. Rumors swirled that the Baba Yaga was not just one man, that he carried ghosts of the fallen in his databanks, using them to pilot his vessel with impossible precision. Some said he was already dead and his ship hunted on its own. Others whispered that he had been altered, his mind fused with machine intelligence, turning him into something beyond human. Whatever the truth, the Empire could not stop him. He arrived without ceremony. One moment, the capital system was calm. The next, every sensor station lit up as a single destroyer appeared from nowhere. The Imperial Home Fleet, the largest concentration of warships in history, mobilized to intercept. Thousands of guns locked on, target solutions calculated instantly, and then every targeting computer failed at once. Screens went black. AI cores rebooted uncontrollably. Command bridges filled with static as navigational data vanished. The only sound across open comms was a calm human voice, unhurried, almost cold. "This is your only warning." The bloodied ship glided straight through the perimeter defense without firing a single shot. Escorts tried to ram it manually, but their engines shut down as they closed in, drifting helpless as it passed. Fighters scrambled, their pilots screaming over open channels as their controls locked. In the heart of Imperial space, where nothing unapproved should ever penetrate, A lone human vessel drifted past the home fleet, like a predator testing its prey. Then, as suddenly as it appeared, it was gone, jumping into faster-than-light transit before any counterstrike could land. The High Council assembled its armada with all the arrogance of a power that had never truly been challenged. 300 capital ships, carriers the size of cities, destroyer screens bristling with weapons, thousands of strike craft armed with grav lances and antimatter torpedoes. Entire logistics trains followed them like obedient hounds, ensuring nothing would be left to chance. Their objective was simple: march into Sol, burn Earth until it begged for mercy, and present its broken husk as a warning to every species in the galaxy. They would crush the Baba Yaga by force of numbers and erase his legend with overwhelming firepower. In their towering chambers, the High Council declared the human threat finished before a single shot had been fired. But the man they hunted did not plan to fight fair. For months, the Baba Yaga had been preparing the battlefield. Not with fleets or armies. Humanity had no fleets large enough to meet the Empire in open combat. But with information, sabotage, and careful deception, he mapped their jump routes, learned their encrypted orders, and planted traps where no enemy expected resistance. Human engineers buried gravity mines near pulsars and booby-trapped abandoned refueling stations with weaponized singularities. Civilian networks were hijacked to broadcast false fleet positions, luring Imperial ships off course. By the time the Armada reached Sol, its flanks were already bleeding from accidents, misjumps, and collisions engineered by invisible hands. Convoys vanished in transit. Escorts found themselves locked out of their own systems as drive cores overloaded. The Baba Yaga was carving the Empire apart before the battle even began. When the Imperial Armada finally appeared at the edge of Earth's home star, they found the system eerily quiet. No human fleet waited in defense. No planetary weapons powered up. Earth itself appeared undefended, a vulnerable jewel beneath the sun. Admirals expected an easy victory, but crews muttered nervously in their bunks. They had all heard the stories. The ship that could not be tracked, the man who could appear inside the most secure systems, the crimson hull scarred by impossible battles. Their commanders barked orders to silence the fear, but soldiers know when they are marching into a trap. The Baba Yaga revealed himself alone, as promised. One battered destroyer, streaked with the blood-red marks of its countless kills, emerged from behind Neptune's orbit and accelerated straight for the Armada. The Imperial flagship broadcast a warning, demanding surrender. The destroyer's only reply was a brief open channel, carrying a calm human voice. "You should not have come." Then everything went wrong at once. Imperial ships tried to lock weapons on target, but their targeting arrays spun wildly, systems displaying phantom images. Fighters launched to intercept, only to turn on each other as their guidance software was rewritten mid-flight. Massive carriers went dark, their reactors shutting down as if someone had flipped a single switch. Gravity mines hidden near the orbital lanes activated, tearing through escort lines with invisible force. One by one, entire squadrons vanished in flashes of light as their drives imploded. The Baba Yaga moved among them like a surgeon, striking at command ships with precision fire, vanishing before anyone could return a shot. What no one in the Empire understood was that humanity had prepared for this day long before the first colony was burned. The Baba Yaga was not a rogue acting alone. He was the spear point of a will far greater than his own. Earth scientists, engineers, and soldiers had poured every resource into making his ship a nightmare, an unholy hybrid of human ingenuity. Captured Imperial tech and forbidden AI intelligence bonded his own mind. The destroyer was alive with the voices of the fallen. Every scar on its hull a testament to battles survived by sacrifice. When Imperial missiles launched, counterhacks rerouted them back to their owners. When shields closed, quantum lances sliced them open. And every time an enemy vessel exploded, the captain transmitted one message: "Leave humanity alone." The Imperial Admiralty tried to rally, but their orders never reached their ships. Communications collapsed under a storm of interference, overridden by human code the Empire could not decipher. Fleets that should have crushed a single destroyer found themselves blind and leaderless, colliding with one another in panic. In 3 hours, 1/3 of the Armada was gone. In 6 hours, half of it burned. In 9 hours, The survivors fled, abandoning their crippled carriers and dead flagships to the void. The Baba Yaga let them run, not because he was merciful, but because he wanted witnesses. The destroyer approached Earth not as a shield, but as bait. When the shattered remains of the Armada limp home, they carried stories no propaganda could erase. Admirals who once mocked humanity spoke in trembling voices of a ship that could not be killed, of weapons guided by rage itself, of a man who fought as though death was his ally. Imperial citizens saw images of their proud fleet reduced to wreckage, their finest commanders begging for extraction. The myth became undeniable. Humans were not prey. Humans were predators who had simply been underestimated. But the Baba Yaga was not finished. He followed the retreating ships to the jump lanes, striking supply depots, cutting communication relays, and leaving Imperial worlds defenseless in his wake. Entire garrisons surrendered at the sight of his ship alone. On worlds where human prisoners were held, Imperial forces awoke to find their own weapons turned against them, their camps emptied in silence. No soldier survived to explain how the captives escaped. Only a single message was found, burned into every data core. For the children of Earth. At last, he transmitted directly to the Imperial capital. Every screen across the homeworld went black. Every AI network froze. The High Council's chambers filled with the sound of a steady human heartbeat. Then his voice spoke, quiet and steady, heard by billions at once. I warned you. You burned our homes. You took our families. You thought we were weak. If you ever set foot on human soil again, if you ever raise a weapon against Earth or any of her children, I will come for you, and I will not stop. Then the signal ended. When Imperial forces scrambled to trace the origin, they found nothing. The Bloodied ship had vanished, leaving only silence and fear. Days later, the Empire announced a sudden withdrawal from human space. No explanation was given. No treaty was signed. But the meaning was clear. Humanity had earned a place among the stars not by asking, not by begging, but by proving that even the mightiest empire could bleed. Whispers spread across the galaxy. Species long cowed by Imperial power began to resist, inspired by the legend of one man in one ship who defied an empire. In every bar, every military barracks, every shadow port, the name was spoken with a mix of awe and terror. The Baba Yaga, the human ghost, the crimson destroyer that came without warning and left only wreckage behind. Some swore he was still out there, hunting Imperial slavers, tearing apart warlords, appearing whenever tyranny dared to raise its head. Others believed he had returned to Earth to live out his final days in peace. But no one really knew.